Are you told often that you're singing off tune? Have you given up on singing altogether? As a child, were you ever told you were a bad singer? And now are you afraid to sing in front of other people? Have people told you that you're tone deaf? My name is Erica, and I am a professional singer and vocal coach. And I have been teaching voice and piano for over 15 years. And I have taken a special interest in pitch matching. We call this the fundamental frequency. Every pitch in the world, every note has a frequency which we measure in hertz. It is a sound wave, and the human ear recognizes these hertz, the differences in hertz, as different pitches. You may have heard of like do, re, mi, or, people going like A, B, C, C, D, E, different notes and all that. So that is what I mean when I talk about pitch. I'm happy to tell you today that it's very unlikely that you're actually tone deaf. And I hope that is exciting news for you, and that you may actually be able to learn to better sing on pitch. For example, if people are singing, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you," are you one of the people singing like, "Happy birthday to you, happy birthday," just completely off? Or maybe someone told you that you were when you were a kid and now you are traumatized. I have been pursuing a master's degree in vocal pedagogy through the University of Wales, Trinity St. David, in conjunction with Vocal Study Center, located in the United Kingdom. I have done research throughout my program, and much of my research has taken place surrounding pitch matching. The word tone deafness, the scientific word for that is amusia, and someone who has amusia can be called amusic. A-M-U-I-S, like anti, right? Amusic. And tone deafness, or congenital amusia, which is really rare in the population. It's actually only 4% of the population. And to be classified as tone deaf, there is a test you can take. It's called the Montreal Battery of Evaluation, and it is available online. It's a 2-hour test, and you have to score a certain number of standard deviations under the standard in order to be classified as amusic. Now, since it's only 4% of the population that is amusic, you are likely not amusic, especially if you clicked on this video and that you're interested in singing. Because a lot of amusic people don't like music at all. It doesn't really sound pleasing to them. They don't really hear the differences between notes. They don't hear the differences between classical music and rock music. So if you like music and it sounds, and you can understand the differences between a lot of different types of music, and you enjoy different types of music, that's another sign that you're probably not actually amusic. But I'm going to tell you today some basic traits that according to studies, the amusia is a disorder of the brain. Well, not really a disorder, but it's an abnormality. So people with amusia have a brain abnormality. It's been identified to be in the right inferior frontal cortex and the right auditory cortex. So auditory is where we hear things. So that makes a lot of sense. Generally, amusic people not only cannot sing on pitch, they cannot really perceive pitch. So this is an important thing that we're going to talk about later, because you're likely not amusic, but you're going to be called something which there is a name for, called poor pitch singer, which in the literature we abbreviate to PPS. For example, when they ask amusics to sing a common tune, let's say it's like "Row, row, row your boat," amusics can rarely even sing it at all, whereas a normal, non-trained singer, maybe even a poor pitch singer, will be able to be like "Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream," get it mostly right, and the music will be completely just "row, row, row," like completely no sense of the song at all. So let's now talk about poor pitch singer, which you may be. Poor pitch singers are 10% of the population, it's estimated. And if that's you, it's okay. Because I have taught poor pitch singers in my studio in my career. And my experience with working with them was challenging, but it also required me to come up with a curriculum in which to help these students improve. And there's a lot of reasons why there is a lack of resources for teachers. And I will start, and this is what my research really went into. I actually studied voice teachers' opinions on teaching poor pitch students. And interestingly enough, though maybe predictable, poor pitch singers, people who do not sing on pitch, voice teachers generally do not like working with them. And in my research, I hypothesized it was due to the lack of resources in the pedagogical training that teachers receive in university and in vocal textbooks. And I went through a bunch of standard vocal textbooks that have a lot of these are the books that they have, these are the textbooks that they have vocal pedagogy students read in university. And these are standard textbooks. I went through these major textbooks, which are the standard ones. There's like Appelman, he was a big vocal pedagogist, Venard, Dosher, just among a few. And I went through these books and I tried to see how many places in the book do they talk about pitch and how to sing on pitch. And believe it or not, it was almost nowhere to be found in the book at all. It wasn't really referenced. Once in a while, they'd reference the word fundamental frequency, which just means the note that you're singing. But there was no information on how to sing it, how to find that note, ways to improve, troubleshooting, nothing. The only book in which I found information was a book geared towards teaching children, like an early music education book. And that book did have some information on teaching kids how to sing on pitch. But let's go back to teachers. They did a study of teachers that are in the National Association of Teachers of Singing, which we call NATS. It's an American and now international organization. And they asked the teachers, what are the most important factors in determining a student's potential for success as a singer? Which traits make that singer likely to have success as a singer, and what is considered good? And the two most important things were intonation. In fact, intonation was number one. Intonation means singing in tune, by the way. And it was either, they ranked 37% ranked it as the first most important thing, 27% ranked it as the second, and 15% ranked it as the third. So that overall is 79% of the teachers that ranked it 1 through 3 out of 8 factors, by the way. And the second most important thing was timbre, spelled Timbre. Timbre is the quality of the sound. That is best described as the difference between listening to a clarinet and listening to a violin. They can be playing the exact same notes, but they sound completely different. So some people have a really nasal tone, like eh, and some people have like a rich tone, ha, like that is what timbre means. And so like that makes sense that the things that would make you successful as a singer are singing on pitch and having a pleasant, or let's say in the case of being able to sing professionally, you need to have a pleasant or interesting timbre that people want to listen to. Okay, so there we have this study, and teachers found it very important. I surveyed these teachers. I asked them, would you rather teach a student who has poor pitch or has poor acting? Would you rather teach a student who has poor pitch or poor timbre, poor pitch or poor diction? Diction is pronunciation. I went through everything and I got it. I came up with these categories based on a rubric that teachers use when we judge students in singing competitions. And so we are ranking students on all of these factors. So therefore, I asked the teachers to compare, would you rather work with a student with these issues or these issues? And overwhelmingly, the teachers did not want to work with the students with poor pitch. So I was in the situation where I had students, and these were adolescents, middle school age and high school age, who came to me and wanted voice lessons, and they were not naturally able to match pitch easily. It was very hard for them. It was not natural, and when they sang, they often did not have accurate pitches at all. So there I had a problem. I had students who want to sing, but they can't sing on pitch. This can be very frustrating for teachers because pitch is something that's very noticeable. And in general, someone who sings off pitch is usually mocked. I don't know if you remember the famous national anthem. It's a very hard song, by the way, so it's always crazy that unfortunately is what people are judged on. But the national anthem is very hard to sing, and whenever there's a really bad version of it, the thing people are usually commenting on is being off pitch on the song. Because if you can't stay on, oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light, then you are singing a completely different song, right? Oh, say, can you see? Like, that's completely random pitches, right? So that is not the song. Let's say you've now determined you're not a music, but you've been told by people throughout your life, or maybe as a child, and then you never sang again, or maybe you're singing here and there, and then someone tells you that you sound awful, or that you're off pitch, or you just think you're off pitch because you hear yourself and you hear other people and you don't think it sounds the same. So if any of those things are true, I want you to know that there is hope, that you can improve. Because I've seen it in my very own studio, and it's been a really inspiring experience. It's been frustrating, but it's also been rewarding, because the more difficult something is and the more you put into it, the greater the reward when it pays off. And I think that's true for so many things in life. When things come easy to us, we often don't appreciate it. We take it for granted. When we work at something really hard for a long period of time, and then we finally get to our goal, it is a very rewarding experience. And so for the students themselves, when I see the joy that they're now singing on pitch and they're able to sing songs that they like, they're thrilled. And I'm really thrilled because I put so much sweat and tears, blood, sweat, and tears into teaching these students. And sometimes it's literally banging your head against a wall, because it's very frustrating. What happens typically in a voice lesson is, there'll be an exercise like, ya, 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 and I'm playing the piano pitches along with the students. And a typical singer who has some base level of pitch awareness and can sing on tune, will be following along and be singing pretty close on pitch. Some singers are slightly flat or sharp. Flat or sharp means that you're on the pitch, but you're slightly above or below it. But I'm going to explain in a second how pitches work in the first place, and then I'm going to give you, at the end of this video, a basic exercise to do to start on your journey of improving your pitch. And in future videos, I'm going to go more in depth on how to sing on pitch. Something important to consider is that to sing on pitch requires multiple neurological processes, but I can break it down into two very simple processes. It's easier to understand. So there's the perception of the pitch. The perception is that when I hear the note, right, let's say I play that on a piano. I decided not to record this with the piano because I feel more with you here on the couch, but let me just play a note here. So the note is played. What do I have to do to sing that? One, I have to hear it. Piano's played. I listen. My brain interprets it, and then my brain says, oh, that's where the pitch is. It has to interpret it, and then I have to get everything coordinated to actually sing it. And that is called the motor process. The motor processes are, it's like muscle memory. It's like muscles are coordinating, our body is coordinating, our vocal cords are, our vocal cords are inside our larynx, okay? So the vocal cords are stretched with muscles, and they have to be stretched to a certain length in order for us to hit various pitches. On top of that, we have to have airflow coordinated just right in order to have the tone be correct and to hit the pitch. And depending on whether I'm singing low or high, whether I'm singing with more of a chest dominant voice or a head voice dominant, those factors all change. So it's an extremely difficult process. Therefore, if you're having trouble singing on pitch, but you can hear pitches, the issue is not that you're tone deaf. The issue is that you need to learn to coordinate your voice. And with singing, and this is a very scary concept, okay? It's extremely scary. You have to be willing to make mistakes. It is a trial and error process. And this is why so many people who are afraid of failure are afraid of trying new things. Because part of the learning process when it comes to singing is trial and error. Emphasis on the error. Error must happen in order for the correct to happen. Because we already know you don't have the ability to just sing everything on pitch the first time you hear it, right? Okay, so then you know you're going to make mistakes to get there. And you cannot be afraid of that process. And every time that you're willing to sing the note and just go for it, even if it's the wrong note, you're going to build so much confidence, because it's not about singing because you know that you're right. It's about singing because you're wanting to learn. And once you reframe that into singing for the sake of learning, what rather than singing to be right or singing to be good or singing, that's not right. That is not a happy way to live your life in general. We want to think of it as growth mindset, and everything we're doing in life is to learn. We are on this earth to learn. We are all human. We are imperfect beings, so we must learn. Okay, so now that that's established, I want you to understand that singing is going to be extremely trial and error, and you must be willing to work. So here's another important thing. In studies, people have different abilities to perceive and match pitch based on how the pitch is played to them. So for example, if a pitch is played on a piano versus a pitch is sung to them. And they even tested whether it's a recorded voice or a live voice. They tested digital sounds versus acoustic sounds. So these things actually matter in the perception. And it's another thing that needs to be trained. There are people who grew up listening to pianos and matching them as children, because let's say you had a music class and your teacher was playing with a piano and you were told to match the piano. You're probably going to have an easier time matching a piano than someone who never sang with a piano their whole life. And then they get to a voice lesson and the teacher's playing with the piano and they're like, I don't know what to do. So therefore, keep in mind that there may be a way for you personally that is more ideal. And as a teacher in general, as a teacher of piano, a teacher of voice, as a coach, as a life coach, I believe, and I've seen through my experience, that every single human being on this planet learns in a slightly different way. No two people are exactly alike. And I can put people in buckets like, you've heard visual learner, auditorial learner, motor learner, and those are big buckets. But within that spectrum, people are a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and they're all over. So don't ever think like, oh, well, that person can just sight read perfectly, and so therefore they're good and I'm bad, or and that's just how it is. I mean, some people read a book and absorb all the information, and some people have to do an audiobook to absorb the information. That doesn't mean that one is a better or worse way. It's just how they are. So therefore, keep that in mind too. Don't be discouraged if the conventional way isn't for you. One of the main problems is this is a huge problem for voice teachers. Most voice teachers were singers first. They became a voice teacher because they had a good voice to begin with. They probably sang throughout their whole childhood. They love singing and they're good at singing. So therefore, I'm good at singing, so therefore I should teach singing. Well, not every singer is a good teacher. That's an interesting concept to also think about. And just how I experience hearing pitch and singing pitch is probably completely different from each of my students, how they do that. So someone who's a good teacher can understand that and interpret these things to each of their students in a way that that student needs. And that's what I'm very good at doing. So one-on-one, this is what I would do. I would like get to know you, I would figure it out, and then I would gear things towards your success. But here we are in a video that you're going to learn. In studies, there were people who were able to perceive pitch but not make the pitch. So overall, these poor pitch singers had a better ability to perceive. And the way they tested this is they used this slider tool, which is basically a way that they could create pitches, not on a piano. It's like a little electronic kind of thing that made different pitches. So the pitch was played to them, and then they used this manual thing to copy the pitch. And guess what? They scored better on that than when they had to sing the pitch back, which tells us that is the coordination of the interpretation of hearing it and then turning it into motor process. Okay, so that's one thing that we're going to do to work on it. So motor control is extremely important. As I mentioned, you have to breathe. Singing is like breathing. I have to think about the pitch. I have to breathe. Then I have to have the breath start to flow so that my vocal cords start to vibrate at the frequency that I want. Ah. Then while I'm singing, I have to listen to myself to maintain that pitch as it's already going. Ah. And maybe I want to add vibrato or something. Ah. Maybe I want to increase or decrease volume. Ah. Right? So all these things I have to literally plan and do. And very good singers, we've just practiced so many times that we're able to do it like that. It's easy for us. It's easy for me. I sang before I even talked. Singing to me was the most natural thing. I heard tunes in my head my whole life. That's just what I am. So here's what we're going to work on today. And this is a very simple exercise. And there's a free website. I'm showing it right here, onlinemictest.com/tuner/pitch detector. The beautiful thing about this is you don't need a piano. You don't need any kind of instrument to play the pitch to, because you're going to discover pitches just through your own voice. So you have to press start pitch detection. And then I want you to even just talk, okay? Just like hold a talking note. Ah, hey, hi. Notice how the note is changing. You'll see two numbers. You see a hertz. Hz stands for hertz. That's the frequency that we measure in hertz. It's just a measure of wavelength and wavelength over time. So if you see a wave, like a sound wave, it looks like this. And hertz is how many waveforms happen per second. All right, so I'm talking. The pitches are going everywhere. So what you're going to do is you're just going to try to hold a singing note. Whatever that is, you're going to pick one. Okay, I'm singing B3. All right, so then what you're going to do is you're going to try to sing it again. If you can, great. If you can't and you are singing a different note, that's okay. What you're going to do is once you get on a pitch, you're going to sing on it, and then you're going to look at that little meter, and you're going to try to move it up gradually. So you're going to go, So I'm now going up, and I'm going down. And you may need to, that may be natural for you to go up and down, and it may not be. If that's confusing you, just only go up. And eventually you're going to be out of your range and you're not going to go any higher. And the same thing going down. All right? So that's the first thing you can do. If you are now controlling your up and down and it's going well, you can practice what we call intervals. So notice how these are marked very neatly, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and we have these things called sharps. I don't want you to worry so much about the sharp. Just know that each of these designations, because they're evenly spaced, those are called half steps. So between every little thick blue notch here that is surrounding, like for example, E to F, E, that's a half step. So E to F is a half step, F to F sharp is a half step. So what makes Western music work, or what we love in Western music, is having these very distinct differences in pitch, which we label as intervals. And in the case of a half step, that is the difference between these two notes. And you want to try to get it on the line as close as possible. Now, luckily, most humans are not able to hear flat and sharp. Flat means you're singing slightly under pitch, and sharp means you're singing slightly over pitch. In between each half step, we measure in cents. There's 100 cents, and you want to be within 25 cents of the pitch. Most people will not even hear the 25 cents. Professional musicians will. And if you're 50 cents off, people will know you're out of tune. And when you're 100 cents off, you're singing a completely different note. So just keep that in mind. So you want to be as close to the big line as possible, that the marker is on the note. So go like that. By the way, when I have vibrato in my voice, that is technically a slight pitch fluctuation, but it's a pitch fluctuation that we like, right? Ah, notice how it's shaking. Ah, vibrato is a pitch fluctuation. So not all pitch fluctuations are bad, okay? But again, we want to be as accurate as possible. When we do a major scale, we're doing a combination of half steps and whole steps. A whole step means 2 half steps. So re, mi, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, di, do. Okay? So that's just a combination of half steps and whole steps. So that's something you have to work on later, but the very first part is just realizing that there's up and down. And once you can do up and down, we then will work on actual pitches. And there are many programs on your computer that are free and will play notes for you. So you can say, okay, I want to play an E, I want to play an F, and I want to try to match that. That'll be step 2. But that's for another video. For now, if you want, you can take this Montreal battery, this Montreal Battery Evaluation of Musical Abilities. These are, it's very complicated though. It's see how it says online test. If you wish to complete the brief assessment, okay, so this is a brief assessment. This isn't like the full-on 2-hour one, but you could start here. By the way, this Isabelle Parrots. She's the leading researcher on tone deafness. She's in Canada. She's amazing. I emailed her once and she actually responded to me. So I'm very happy about that. So yeah, there'll be a test, whatever. And so you can get through this test. And if it comes out at the end that you're tone deaf, I would get a second evaluation and follow up with the whole 2-hour one. But if you pass the test and it says you're not tone deaf, you're not tone deaf. That just means you need to work with a teacher in order to improve your pitch and become a better singer. But let me finish this whole long video with a story about my own students that happened. So I had a student who I started teaching when they were 7 or 8 years old, and they started as a piano student. And this student later got really into musical theater and wanted to sing. And so he started singing. And the student had a really tough time singing. I think part of the reason was the student had a very limited vocal range. So they only had about a 1-octave range. And this is also very common. When we work in singing class, we expand our range and then we're able to hit more notes. Therefore, we're more often in tune. So that was problem number 1. 2, the student just had no sense of pitch. It just wasn't a natural thing. It didn't come easy. The student often heard, I felt, would hear the words of the songs and would memorize them very easily, but had a hard time hearing the pitch separated from the words. And so we worked for years and years and years, blood, sweat, and tears, me playing notes, them singing back, us working, and coming up with strategies, teaching the student to hear themselves. And guess what? They got better. And that student used to sing only 10% pitch accurate, and now that student sings about 80% pitch accurate. And to me, that is a huge improvement because they can actually sing a song and it can be recognized as the song they're singing versus just saying words in a monotone way that's completely off pitch. So therefore, what I'd like you to do is consider the following. Whoever told you as a child that you're tone deaf, we're going to forget that. We must remember children are terribly mean and they make fun of people for all sorts of reasons, like you're not good at sports. You know, Tolman told me in 6th grade that I was playing girls softball and I threw the ball and someone's like, you throw like a girl. It was a girls team and a girl told me that. And then I quit the team because I was so sad that they told me. And you know what? I could have just learned to throw better if I'd practiced and if a coach had taught me how to throw if I threw balls hundreds of times, I would have gotten better at throwing. Instead, someone said, you don't know how to throw a ball, and then I just gave up. And this is what singing is. Singing is just like learning to throw a baseball or a softball. It takes a lot of practice. It takes a lot of over and over and over and over. And it's like golf. You know, golf is really hard. You have to practice. And people practice for their entire life. That's why these old senior citizens are still golfing, because it's always a challenge forever. Even when they've played hundreds of games and they've been on the driving range hundreds and thousands of times, they always can improve. And so this is the same with singing. This is the same with a lot of things in life. And the way I see it in my vocal studio is singing is just really a metaphor for overall growth as a person. And the things we work on in singing challenge all of our greatest challenges. I mean, in singing, we work through great challenges that are impacting our life in many ways. So if someone has issues where they're very controlling and they have a hard time letting go, I will see that in the vocal studio. And then we have to work on learning to let go in order to release the voice, in order for them to have a nice tone. And in doing that, I apply it back to their work life. And we work on that. In the case of a lot of young students, I'll have the typical student who doesn't like making mistakes in piano, and that means they don't like making mistakes in anything, so they won't even try. And then if they make a mistake, they get really frustrated and mad. And guess what? I encourage them, again, that mistakes are okay, and it's part of the learning. And this is such a good life lesson for kids to learn, because sometimes things come easy to them as a kid. Then they hit that first challenge, and then they just give up on everything, and it's very awful. So I want you to think about that. Whatever your reaction is to challenge can be overcome. And it's okay to be frustrated. And it's okay to feel like you're hitting a wall. Sometimes you just need to hear another YouTube video, you need to listen to a podcast, or sometimes you need to work with a coach. Sometimes you need to go to a class. Some people do group singing classes. There are so many ways that we can address this goal of yours, and I just want you to learn to be okay with making that mistake and putting yourself out there and exploring the fact that maybe you're not a bad singer. Maybe you've just never been taught how to sing.